All right, ladies and gentlemen, something is not adding up. CMHC is claiming the target to be 5.8 million homes to be built by 2030, which is 730,000 homes annually. And now the political parties and everybody involved is being enthusiastic by claiming to be able to hit the target of 500,000 homes per year. So let's get into some data and let's dig a little bit deeper why this is not possible. Is it doable? Probably, but it's not possible. So let's get right into the video. All right, so why do I believe that this is unlikely? It is a dream that it's not possible. There's several reasons for it, right? So why would this be good for us? Obviously, the economy would pick up. We would strive. The employment, and one major sector that Canada is constantly grabbing on is real estate. This is what's happening. But if we get in deeper into data, so in 1974, peaked at 257,000 completed units. In 1974, that was 50 years ago. That was the breaking record. However, in 2021, 271,000 homes were this was the highest year in 2021, which had not been built, right? So I'll get into that in a second. But it is interesting. So the record was in 1974. However, so post-pandemic stimulant boost, this is what happened, right? It was a boost. So after the initial 2020 lockdown, there was a surge in government spending and low interest rates. You get it? The atmosphere. Everybody needed to catch up. Everybody needed to fuel that economy once again. Right? So that was a huge push. And at that time, let's not forget, just over 270,000 homes. Now, cheaper borrowing equals builder confidence. Let's not forget. I'm sure I have followers and viewers that are watching this that are builders, and they know exactly what I am talking about, right? When money is cheap and when it's easier to borrow, it just makes sense for the builders, right? Because they engage into that business, right? So pandemic led urban shifts. This is very important, right? Because with work from home rising in 2021, people moved out of dense cities into suburban, smaller towns. We know that happened, and everybody enjoyed making homemade bread and enjoying working from their laptop from home and all of that stuff. I get that, right? Also, the density, right, in the greater Toronto area is obviously less, and builders and developers could actually push that agenda, right? Now, so CMHC policy support. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation backed several affordable housing initiatives. Municipalities loosened some red tape, fast-tracking certain projects. So basically, everybody was just fueling it, right? Money to be made, everybody was on board, everything makes sense, the red tape was gone, let's go. And you remember, in 2021, if you were trying to hire anybody, a kitchen person, cabinet maker, a painter, electrician, plumber, good luck. It's months before they can even give you an appraisal of what you're trying to do. Anyways, so point number 5, strong investor activity, right? So investors made up more than 25% of purchases in some provinces. Developers ramped up new construction to meet speculative and rental demands, right? So everything was unlocked, right? So all these points, think about it for a second, all these 5 points, which are major points, with all of the push, with everything that we put on the table, our best deck of cards we put on the table, and we barely achieved 271,000 units. And why I say barely, hear me out for a second. Only 223,000 completions happen despite 271,000 unit starts, right? So why? Labor shortages, material delays meant homes were started but not finished. The gap between starts and completions were 48,000 units, right? So yes, we can aim for millions of these units annually, but what can we actually finish, right? So therefore, in 1974, 257,000 units were completed, which was incredible and still holds the record, right? 2021, despite all of these five big, huge indicators, right, that helped massively, we still couldn't do it. All right, so why is this unlikely? Even though political parties are pushing it, even though media is blaring it, even though CMHC is saying it, and everybody else, but it's just physically at this point with what we have, the ammunition, what we're dealing with, it is unlikely. So why? All right, labor shortage, right? So we're missing between 60 and 70,000 skilled workers. Aging workforce. On top of that, fewer apprentices and rising costs make it actually worse. So all of these things put into perspective, it is very tough. And we know, right? We know that you cannot have like a skilled person, right? That's why the designation is skilled. There's a difference between skilled and DUI, right? Do it yourself kind of thing, right? Because they need to go through training, through school. They need to know what they're talking about and all of that stuff, right? Like that's associated with being a skilled worker, right? So supply chain and cost, material costs are volatile. Lumber, concrete installation, delays in delivery, and imports slow projects down significantly. All right, so we know in 2021 that was the case. So what's going to change? I mean, like supply, demand, like we need all of these stuff to hit from A to B. On top of that, infrastructure. It is not as easy to build a road. It is not easy to bring connections like, water connections, gas supply, even internet connections, right? Like people think everything is Wi-Fi. No, they need to bring a cable to your community. And then you get a router inside your house, right? So everything is underground. So it requires excessive work and time and engineering and design, right? And we have seen some of these designs from some of the towns that are in the, suburbs of Toronto. It's not good, right? Like you might have one or two roads that are leading from that town into a city or a bigger town, and it's always jammed all the time, right? So they build it and then they work backwards, right? Like then they try to build the roads, then they try to build the supply, then they try to build everything else that's actually needed, right? So it is not as easy, right? So, okay, so let's move on. Zoning and red tape. Municipalities are notorious slow with approvals, right? So we have seen that. We know that if you ever build anything in your life, right, in this country, it is very demanding, like detailed blueprints. You need to wait. There's easements, there's adjustments, there's fees associated with that, right? So it is not as easy. There's always that delay, right? So interest rates, developer risk. So high borrowing costs are slowing new project launches. So we have seen that in the few years when the interest rates started rising. I mean, it was chaos, right? So many projects are on halt, completely stopped, zero, right? They're not even selling, pushing, nothing, done, right? There's a lot of land as we speak today for sale that have the zoning ready, that have everything. Like you can start building today. However, the borrowing costs just don't make any sense, right? Because a developer or builder cannot build and not make any profits. What's the point, right? All right, so speculative hoarding, right? So this is also a huge problem, right? So even when built, units sit empty or are being flipped. So there are obviously people that invest, that buy, and all of that stuff. I don't know if this part can be regulated through government, like government looking if you have maybe units already in your possession under your name, a company or whatever, and then you're not allowed to buy. I don't know if that's even a possibility or not, right? Because obviously all of us have rights. However, just building this, it's not easily done, right? Because we're dealing, if you start building cheaper homes, much cheaper homes, what happens to the existing inventory and what happens to the existing prices, right? So if the average price in Toronto right now is $1.1 million, and if we start building projects or homes that are half of that, they're at $500,000 a property, right? So what happens? What happens to the existing real estate and homes? Will that price be adjusted immediately or not, right? So it's a catch 22, right? Like it almost doesn't make any sense, right? And like, do we really have a shortage? I mean, there are listings sitting on the market as we speak. There's hundreds of the listings everywhere, right? Yes, it's bank rates, right? Like make a huge difference when it comes to purchases and allowance and all of that stuff. But now we are willing to hit 500,000 units annually, which is not doable by graphs, not by me. It just doesn't make any sense. We never hit that number ever, right? And now we're sitting on that bandwagon with that lucid dream that we might be able to achieve these numbers, right? With everything that I explained why it's not possible, right? So I hope you got some value out of this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.